So, Bramus, thank you for joining me. I'm really excited for this. And I have this sort of boring-ish page that I want to add a little bit of excitement to by adding some cross-document view transitions in here. We have 3 pages that I have set up right now. And so, yeah, what would be the easiest way to get started in adding a view transition to my page?
The easiest way to get started, because you have a website here, so an MPA, as we call it, just 3 pages working together. You add the add view transition add rule to your style sheet. Yeah. And in there you set the descriptor navigation and you give it a value of auto. And that opts in the browser to enable view transitions for traversing the history and also when pushing and replacing onto the history. So as you see right now, you just added the thing. You be sure to make it to add it to both pages though. So both pages need to have it added.
Yes. Yeah.
And by that, for free, you get the crossfade animation.
So first of all, that's really cool. That one line of CSS and it just works.
It's amazing. One side note with it, it will only work for same origin navigations.
Right.
So if you have different websites, you won't be able to view transition from the one side to the other. But if you stay on your website, then you can have view transitions between your pages.
One question about it is we used to have a meta tag when things were first coming around, and now it's the CSS rule. So how come that changed?
So the meta tag is something that we used while we were prototyping this feature in Chrome. But we knew that this was a temporary thing, which we added to allow authors to try it out. So some developers tried out view transitions when it was still behind the runtime flag with that meta tag. So long story short is that the meta tag is gone. It was a temporary measure. Now we should use this add view transition add rule, which is part of the web standard that enables view transitions.
Awesome. And so this is the standard now. Nothing's going to change. People can know that they can safely use it.
Exactly. And in the future, maybe we'll add some more descriptors into this add rule, but right now it's undecided.
Right. Okay, cool. That's awesome. And the nice thing with this that I always tell people is it's a really good progressive enhancement, because if it doesn't work, it doesn't do anything bad. You just don't have a little transition. Instead, it just works the way it always used to.
You get the existing experiences. You click a link and then the page changes. And if your browser speaks view transitions, you get the nice and rich animated experience. Yeah.
So one thing I noticed when I was looking into these on my own is this is like the easiest thing in the world, but then all of a sudden things get a little bit more complicated with them. I'm a huge fan of pseudo elements. Like before and after are my jam, but now I have more pseudo elements than I know what to do with. that all came with this. So just like quickly, let's say I want to do like a quick customization of this instead of it just being sort of this quick fade back and forth that we have going right now. What could I do to be able to do that?
So when you're starting a view transition, the browser will capture a snapshot of the existing page, and then it will capture a snapshot of the new page, and then it will do the crossfade in between. And this crossfade in between, that's powered by regular CSS animations. So you can target all the pseudo elements that we create, and you can say like, hey, you have a different animation name, or you have a different animation duration. Everything that gets snapshot, so by default, the root elements get snapshot, but you can snapshot more elements. I'm sure we'll cover that later on. But everything that gets snapshot gets rendered a little pseudo tree, and at the root of that pseudo tree is the view transition overlay, which you can target with : view transition, and that's just that. But then in there, you will have a little group for the thing that was captured, which contains the old and the new snapshot. And you can target it with : view transition - group. And then in there, you can add the name of the thing that was captured. So by default, the root element gets a view transition name of root. Yeah, so you use root. And then in there, you can do animation - duration, 2 seconds maybe. And then you will see that everything has slowed down.
Hit save on there and jump on over. There we go. Very slow. Yeah. Is there like, I think it's obvious. It's nice for a demo doing this because then we can actually clearly see that it's happening. When we're in the middle of the 2 transitions, like which text or what's the active page and where are we when that transition's happening?
So view transitions work by capturing snapshots. So on the old page, you could say that it's a screenshot. We capture a screenshot of what's on the screen. But then for the new page, we have a live snapshot. And what has actually happened is when the view transition starts to run, so it starts doing its animation, the DOM underneath has already changed. So in the accessibility tree, you will find all the new things in there. And then the images layered on top of your page will do the crossfade. And then you get to see the new page underneath.
Other than animation duration, you alluded to that there's a few other things that we can do. What would be something else that, a simple thing maybe that we could add to fancy this up, do something different?
Yeah, depends on what you want to do. Maybe you want to like scale up and scale down the pages,
Sure,
or you want to slide them from left to right or whatever.
Let's start with scaling them just to see that we can change the animation, and then after that maybe do something a little bit more.
Sure. So to do that, whip up some keyframes that scale the thing from 0 to 1. So you can do add keyframes like you do with regular CSS animations. You call it scale or whatever.
Yep, scale, and then we can do. Do we want the 0% and then or a to and from, or do we just need an end state? Because I guess
we
it's
would
always,
just need the from, because by default the scale value is 1. So you just need the from, and then set it to like scale 0 or whatever.
Out. Yeah. So our scale in, right? We're going to do that.
Scale in, yeah.
Yeah. And then whatever. It's fine. So from, and then a scale of, we'll say 0. So it's very, very obvious what's happening.
Yeah. And then you would need to target the old snapshot, the new snapshot. So you basically want the old page to scale down and then the new page to scale up. So you would also need to target those pseudos individually. So to target the old snapshot, you use colon view transition old. And then between the parentheses, you add the identifier of the thing that was snapshotted again. So here it's root. And then you can say animation name scale in. And then most likely we would need to reverse the animation, or you could whip up some new keyframes that say scale out, depending on how you want to approach it. Yeah, I also duplicate the keyframes and change it. It's easier to, to
get. So it's a from, and then we just say to. And then...
Yeah, so the old one would be, I think, scale out, and then the new one would be scale
that makes
in.
Sense. Yeah. So now it might not work. Oh, there we go. Cool.
Yeah.
I think there's something weird happening.
Oh, you have view transition old twice in there.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
That would help. So let's save, make sure everything's good, and then, there we go.
Exactly.
It's so weird. Yeah, that's really neat that we can just completely change it like that.
And really also it's running slower now because the animation duration that you have set on the group in the UA style sheet, the animation duration is set to inherit onto the old and new pseudos as well. So if you change it in the root in the group, then all children will also be affected by it.
And what's the default? Like, the default one's quite snappy.
Right? Yeah, it's pretty fast.
So, which is again for user experience, I think is better as long as it's just so you're actually getting to where you want to navigate to. But we'll keep it slow for now, just for demo purposes. So that's actually pretty cool, and it's interesting because we're basically just saying like take one page and like, I don't know. For me, it's a weird concept in a way of just like take whatever's on the page and do this animation to like the entire thing. And it's a different concept than I guess we're used to, but it's pretty cool how it works so well.
Yeah, and because this is MPA View Transitions, so cross-document view transitions for websites, it also works with your back and forward buttons.
Yeah, it's not just relying on clicking on the links. Yeah, using, I guess it's any form of navigation, it's always going to automatically kick in.
Yeah, it's traversing the history and then navigations getting pushed or replaced, but invoked through the page itself. So if you are on this website and you click on the link, then you will have the view transition. But for example, if you are on the website and then you would click a bookmark in your browser, then you won't have the view transition because that's not something that happened in the page. It's something that like happened externally.
Okay, so let's say I came here and I changed this from a scale in to like a slide in and a slide out for fun. And then this becomes a translate. And I love the translate shorthand, but I never get the order of them right.
It's first the x-axis and then it's the y one, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this would go to -100? Would that will do something, maybe. And I got to use the new names, scale, and those both become slide.
So what I do for the slide
There
one
we go.
is I would.
Yep,
All
we have
right, it
something
works.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were saying though, what will you do?
Yeah, I would use viewport units, but also 100% works fine here because the thing is actually as wide as the viewport, so
Yes.
100% also works.
So yeah, with something like this, I think it works. It's cool seeing it work. I don't. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I have a thing. I'm using the VS Code's built-in browser that seems to have a weird thing when we go to the homepage, but it's working now. But it's kind of weird right now that like the page sliding makes sense because the content is changing, but the navigation is sliding too. And I feel
Yeah.
like in that situation, it's kind of weird. Is there a way that we could turn that off? So like we're only transitioning, like I want to transition the route, but I don't want to transition the navigation.
Yeah. So with this route being captured, that's effectively the entire viewport that is being captured. If you want to exclude the navigation from that, it's as easy as also setting a view transition name on that navigation bar. So
Okay.
that way the browser will capture the route separately, but also the navigation bar separately. And then you can add different animations to both if you want.
So if I said header and then I do a view transition name, and this is there any rules
ident
on?
that you want to use.
So let's just say, could I just do header like that, or is it
Yeah.
with the new? Yeah, perfect. And now if I click here, oops, there we go. And when we go back and forth, and so just to be really clear on that, as soon as I give this a different name, it removes it from that root and it's treating it as it's sort of like another layer on top.
Exactly.
I guess, because
So
we're being more specific.
yeah, so everything that has a view transition name will be captured individually. So if you would give the title here, for example, also a view transition name, then that title would also be captured separately. It's basically like slicing up your document in several things that need to be captured.
Yeah. Actually, I want to try that. So that's my page title. So if we just said page title, because with the header, like it doesn't change from one to the other, so that's kind of interesting. But here, like the text between the two pages actually switches. Oh, I might not have that on the about page. Let me just see, because I see the styling's different. We'll add that there. Class is equal to page title, and then we can say the view transition name is title, and there we go. So that gets the crossfade default that was like it goes back to being the default animation.
Yeah, exactly. It does the crossfade. And also your duration, you can see that it happens faster than the slide that is happening. And that's because you have the animation duration set only on the root group. So if you want to target all the groups, you change the selector at the top there to use view transition group asterisk, saying like all things that were captured by the view transition, you get the duration of 2 seconds.
Right. Okay, that makes sense, because I've seen that before, but then I was using it on the root, and I guess I just didn't like make that connection on what the difference between the two of them would be. There we go. Cool. So yeah, again, we're building an interesting demo here of all things. I don't know if we'd want to be doing these types of animations, but that's pretty cool that works out of the box like that, and is super easy to make changes to. The other thing I've seen that's really cool is like if we have, like, here's a blog post, and when I go to that, it brings me, which I just saw a mistake in my CSS. Let's just say image max width 100%. There we go. So in this case, and I guess it'd be a bit the same, but like in this case, if I look in my index file, like I'm using this thumbnail here, and then this is an H2. And then if I go over to the actual page, I have this as my H1. So maybe we'd run into an issue there. And like, this is a different image. Would that cause any issues if we're trying to transition between, like, I have my full image versus my thumbnail image, or going from an H1 to an H2 or anything like that?
Very good question, because the answer there is no, this isn't a problem. So with view transitions, because we are animating snapshots, which is pixel data, basically, you can morph an H2 into an image if you want. You can morph an image into a button into a paragraph, whatever. You can do all those things. The one thing that you need to do there in that case is make sure that they have the same view transition name. So on the old page, the thing that you want to capture in that snapshot needs to have a view transition name. And also the other thing on the new page needs to have that same name. And with that, along with that, make sure that that name is unique on that page itself.
Right.
Because otherwise we don't know what to capture, right? If you have two things with view transition name header, it's like, which one do you want?
Yeah. So view transition names always have to be unique for each element on the page.
On the page, yeah.
And then, and if you want it to go from one to the other, it matches the names between the separate
Between
documents.
the two pages, yeah.
Yep, perfect. So in a case like this where, I have an image that you might have, I guess in a situation like this, you might have a special class for it just because it's like the hero image or whatever it would be. So that might be a little bit easier. But let's pretend for now, if I go back to the homepage, I only have one card, but a lot of the time you might have like 10 blog posts or something like that. And if every one of the blog posts, like I can't grab it from the class name of the title or the image because all 10 cards are the same thing. So is there like a best practice or a way that you'd suggest for adding those view transition names?
Yeah. So right now what you have to do, well, if you are server-side generating all your markup, then it's easy because most likely you're looping all your cards anyway. So you're keeping track of an index somewhere, I presume.
Yep.
So you could call it thumbnail 1, thumbnail 2, thumbnail 3, and so on based on the loop. If you have a static page, well, then you kind of manually need to edit, maybe through some selector magic or whatever. And like revealing a little bit of the future, we hope to give you a way to say every image out there, you get an automatically generated view transition name so that you don't need to manually configure each and every image that you want to do. But that's not there just yet.
We're not there yet. So and I guess like if you were looping through, that would just give you like a style is equal to, we'll say call out image, and then the index would get put on there. So 1, 2, 3, 4
as the value for the view transition property.
Oh yeah,
a view transition name property.
View transition name. Yeah. I just destroyed it, so we'll call that again. I said call out image 1. There we go. So we'll just make sure everybody can see that. There we go. So just putting it as an inline style, and then we can do the same thing there. View transition name could be call out title 1 or something like that. And then on this page, you just end up having the same ones, however you're doing it, whether it's looping through or just having it through the class names. And this would be my image. This would be my title.
Exactly.
Cool. So now if I click on, let's refresh because I'm having already some interesting things happen, but let's come here and click on that. And there we go. So the title transitions up to there. The image transitions. This is like my favorite thing. Yeah.
It's so cool, right?
Yeah.
You add the little add rule at the top. You give some view transition names and like magic.
Yeah, it's really, really neat. And how it just, and once again, if I wanted to, you could come in and add custom animations to how those are happening. I guess the thing, like for the crossfade, I get it because you're just, snapshot here, snapshot there. I've always been like just curious, like, because when it does the crossfade, like it's just like knowing the positioning, like we're not getting this weird like blurred thing. It just like looks like the image is moving to where it needs to be without us having to do anything. I don't know. It's so magical to me. I love it.
It is.
And I guess in a way, like I'm just looking at doing something like that. This would actually probably be kind of hard to come in. I guess it depends on what type of animation you want. Like you could add like a spin to it or something ridiculous if you wanted to. But yeah, just having everything work, I think is pretty neat.
My advice there would be like try not to go way too out with all your animations. Like try and keep it subtle because most often it's like these tiny little details that make a difference.
Yes.
But of course, on the other hand, for some things, like if you have a big hero image, you might want to give that a lot of fluff and fanfare and whatever. So yeah.
I'm not sure if just I'm always, whenever I see movement on the page, I'm always thinking of just issues that can come up for people that have vestibular issues and other things like that. I guess again, it depends. Like a crossfade, I think is completely fine. There's no issues with something
Yeah.
like that. Would you say bigger transitions like this potentially might want to be included in? I guess is there a way if I'm doing it inline like that to even prevent any over the top animations, or say I am doing like
Yeah.
I'm doing a personal project, I want spinning and flips and everything, but I do want to respect users that have prefers reduced motion
Yeah.
enabled. Would there be an easy way to do something like that?
Yeah, so you already mentioned it prefers reduced motion
Yeah.
because we configure everything through CSS here. What you can do is if you want to like turn it off entirely, put your add view transition rule inside an add prefers reduced motion query. Or if you also want to like more fine-grainedly control things, then you can have a prefers reduced motion media query. And in there, set some elements to have a view transition name of none, so that it doesn't get captured as part of the
Right. Right.
snapshotting process.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oops, I did it the wrong way there. No preference. I was like, why isn't it working for me? So no preference.
Reds.
Get there eventually. So yeah, if we do this, then it just site-wide enables it for users who haven't opted out for it.
Yeah,
But I sort of like that idea that you said of using that to the other way around, where you can disable it for that big animation that you have while
yeah.
keeping some of the subtle ones. Yeah. I guess the hard thing, like we have the old and the new and the group, which isn't too bad to sort of keep track of those different things like that. Is there any other, first of all, before I have another question, but before we get to that, is there any other of these types of pseudo elements that we should be aware of, or are we good with just sort of tackling these to get most of the
There is
things
still one, which is the view transition image pair, but it's not that important to be honest. So you have the view transition group. In there you have the image pair, and inside of the image pair you have the old and the new snapshot, the one that fades out and fades in. And the image pair, its sole purpose is to do blend mode isolation. Because we're doing a crossfade between two images, and we don't want like the pixel data underneath to contribute to that crossfade. So that's why we have that image pair in there.
Okay.
But right now it's only doing the blend mode isolation. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So generally, this is up. If people are sort of okay with this,
Yeah.
then you're pretty good. And the other thing there is let's just to show really fast, like say I came, because we did the star here, but then we have our header and our title. So if
Yeah.
we wanted to just to, like here, if I want, say I did view transition group of title, is that based on the name here that I'm
Yeah,
doing
it's
that?
based on the name
Yeah.
that you give it, so the value of the view transition name property.
So yeah, so if we had that title coming here, then that's how I would
Yeah.
specifically choose things here to actually make changes to it. So let's refresh. And it's so weird how this browser's working, but there we go. I think it's, oh, I can't,
Is
you know
it
what?
working?
I can't even click now because it's taking 10 seconds to
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
Yeah.
So while
we
your
go.
view transition is running, we prevent clicks from happening because like the DOM content underneath has already changed what you're seeing in image. If you do want your clicks to fall through, you can enable that using pointer events, set it to none on the view transition overlay.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But
Cool.
another note with that is that you can allow clicks on the view transition overlay to fall through the document, but you can never disable clicks on, you can never enable clicks on the group. Because say you're animating an image into a button, and as it is morphing, like if you click it, should the click handler from the image or the click handler from the button happen? So that's a bit of a problem.
Right.
So you can't click on the snapshot of things that are being animated.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. And I think that's another reason. Just, I mean, even with the default behavior there, just keeping them snappy is also important.
Exactly. You want your view transitions to be short, respect prefers reduced motion, and yeah, don't overdo it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So for me, I'm pretty comfortable with this. We're in the world of CSS right now, and I'm pretty happy where this is going. If, let's say, like right now, if I go from my homepage to my about, we're sliding that way. If I push my back button, like we're just running the same animation, the old one's going out,
Yeah.
the new one's coming in. Would there be a way to sort of be aware of the history and which way we're moving back and forth to change the animation depending on which way we're moving?
Yeah. So you can't do it in CSS, but you can do it in JavaScript. Because in JavaScript, we have two new events that are being triggered on the pages. Mm-hmm. On the old page, we have a page swap event, and on the new page, we have a page reveal event. And in there, you have access to navigation activation, which gives you the info which page you came from and which page you are going to. So that way, you can decide, like, okay, should we slide that way or should we slide the other way?
And we're coming in with a little bit of an awkward cut right now because the next parts we're diving into where we're going to be looking at some advanced things we can do with it. Like if we're going from one page to another, the page might slide in a different direction. And we have to use some JavaScript for this. It's not too complicated, but it helped to have our console open. And how I was sharing my screen with Bramus meant we couldn't see my console. And anyway, the whole thing got kind of messy. And so we went through the entire thing together, and I'm just redoing the parts that he walked me through, basically. So I do apologize. Again, thank you very much to Bramus for helping out with everything. And I have made a few quick updates to the page. First of all, I removed the transition I had down in this section here. So this part's just going back to the sliding one that we'd come up with earlier. And then I've added a third page. That's the only differences right now. So yeah, with that, we have the same animation going on everywhere, but we're going to jump over into our main.js now. And there's two different events that come with our view transitions. So if we do a window.add event listener, we can do a page swap. And with our page swap, I'm going to, we're doing some JavaScript now. We're going to make our editor a bit bigger here. We're going to do a function, and we're going to have the event here. So let's just see what that event even is. We can do a console log of our event. And let's go and open up our DevTools. And we're going to jump on over to our console. And I'm going to move myself all the way down here so I don't cover what's going on. And we're going to click on the About. And you can see I get this page swap event coming here. You might not actually have it stay. So if that happens and you're not seeing it, if you go to the little cog that's right here in your DevTools, you just want to make sure preserve log is on. If your preserve log is off, when we're here, if I refresh, or let's clear that, and then if I go to another page, it appears and then instantly goes away because the console's only going for the active page that we're on right now. So cog, preserve log on, and then when we go between them, it keeps the console for each one of the pages. And you can see there's a few different things that are going on in here, but this view transition is one that we can sort of grab a hold of. So we're going to start and say that if event.view transition. So if we have an event of a view transition, now because we're checking for this on the page swap and we're looking for a view transition, we don't necessarily want to run a whole bunch of stuff. So what I'm also going to do here at the top is just say if event.view transition like this, and we're just going to do a return. So nothing will happen if there is no view transition. So I guess we don't really need this version of the if statement there, but it wouldn't really get in the way if we did have it. We have something called activation that we can put here. And so let's jump on over to here, and I'm just going to go to my home, and you can see we're getting some information here on this activation. So we have an entry, we have a from, and we have a navigation type. And the navigation type is going to deal with how you're navigating around. Like if I use my back button, we get a traverse, or if I use my forward button now, I get a traverse. And if I'm clicking on those, you can see I'm getting a push that's coming in. And sometimes I think you'll get there's another one too that comes in sometimes that is escaping me at the moment, but you can get the different ways people are navigating as well, which depending might not matter, but you could use it for specific things potentially as well. But what's interesting here is we're getting our from. So it's telling us what page we're coming from. And the reason we're getting that on our page swap is the page swap is firing when a document is about to be unloaded. So when we're on this page, we're on our about page, or we're on another page, I should say right now. So we're on our third page. When I click on the about, the page swap is firing is right as that page is, or that document that we were just on is being unloaded before that new one is coming in. And so what we can do with one of the things we can get from that activation is the URLs that we were on. So we can do an event.activation from URL and entry URL. So the page we were coming from and the page, or I guess document I should be saying, that we're entering into. So if we come and take a look at those, I close my console there. But if we come and we can do a console log of those, console.log, we can say old is our old URL, and then comma, our new is our target URL right there. Don't forget your commas, which I forgot. Right there, hit save. This should be target URL. There we go. Everything's in place now. And if I go to about, you can see the old one was my index, so it doesn't show anything. And then, or no, it's here, sorry, the local host there with nothing. And then the new one is my about.html. If I go to another page, my old one was about, and my new one here is my another page. So we have access to both of those, where we're going from and where we're coming, which one we're going to. And that can be useful. But to make use of that, what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do in this case, is we're going to come all the way up to the top. I'm going to make an array. So we're going to say pages is equal to, and my first one here is just going to be a blank string, and we'll see why in a minute. Then we're going to have my about.html and then my another page.html. Basically just a list of the pages that are in my document that I want this animation to run on. And you'd probably want to turn this into like its own function to detect the direction and everything. And maybe we'll do that in a second, but let's start by just sticking with it here, and then maybe we can do a quick refactor. But let's say we're going to say const, so that's our old URL and our target URL. So let's just, in this case, we don't want to get the entire thing. We just want to get this part of each one of them. So let's just say we're going to say old path is equal to, and from there we can say we have a new URL, and that would be our old URL that we're going from, but then we're going to do a .path name .split and do that, and then we're going to do a .pop. And to show you what that's giving you, just in case you're wondering, or we'll do this for both of them and then we'll console log them. So we can copy that. This would be my new path, and this would be the target, or maybe we'll do target just to be consistent. Target path, and then target goes here. And let's console log both of those. So console, I think we'll do one at a time this time. We'll say old path. So now let's open up the console again. When I go to about, you can see we had another page.html. So now we're on the about page. So if I click on the home, it's showing we were on the about. The old path was about. If I change this instead to be the target path and I hit save, let's clear that. I'm currently on the home page, and I'm going to click on about, and you can see it's telling me we've navigated. The new target was the about. And if I go to another page, it's right there. And if I go to my home, the home is an empty string because we're going to after that /. There's nothing after the / there, so we're just getting empty, which is why I put an empty string right here. So we know what page we're going to, which is useful, right? I keep closing my console. I'm not sure why, because we're going to keep using it. But what we can do now is, because we have this, which is matching what we have in our array, we can know the order of all the different things that are coming in here. So let's come in with another set here. We're going to say our old old probably was not the right term to use. I'm going to use it anyway. Since we're there, we're going to say old index is going to be equal to our pages. So pages dot index of, and then we just put in our old path. And then we have our const target path, target index is going to be equal to pages dot index of, and we can have on here our target path. And now, I guess, as I said, we're going to keep console logging stuff for now. Console log old index. We'll start with just that one. And now, if I click on about, we get the number 0. If I click on another page, we get 1. This is the old index. So it's the page we were on originally. So I'm on another page right now. If I click on home, it was number 3, or it was the second one because it was getting this, right? 0, 1, 2. We're currently on the home page. So if I click somewhere, it should be 0. We can see 0 coming up. If we do our target index next, let's clear this off. And so now whichever one I click on, we should see that number. So if I click on home, we should see 0. If I click on about, we should see the 1. And then if I click on another page, we see the 2. I'm not sure what happened to my transitions. Things got a little funky, or a bit funky at the moment. We'll tackle that as we continue going through this though. But we don't need that right there anymore. But what we want to do is check which one, are we going to a page that's a higher index or a lower index? So to be able to figure that out, I can come on this and say that we have a const of direction. And direction is going to be equal to, we're going to check if which page we have a number here and a number here basically. So we want to just see, are we going forward to a higher page, or are we going backward, which would be going to a lower number? And so to be able to do that, we can say that if the old index is less than the target index, then what do we want? If it is less than, then we're moving forwards, and I also just realized the question mark goes over here if we're doing this. And if not, then we put the backwards here, backwards. So we'll do forward and backward, singular like that. And so are we moving forward? Or are we moving backward? I don't know when forward and backward are supposed to be singular or plural. Let me know in the comments if you know, because I could be using it wrong. Doesn't really matter though. It's gonna work. So that's the direction that we're going in. And things are about to fall apart, and then we're going to fix them. Don't worry, I'm doing it slightly on purpose. It's a problem I ran into myself when I was trying to recreate what Bramus had been teaching me. And so I wanted to highlight it because I'm sure other people would run into this problem. And so what we're going to say is we want to do something with this direction, right? And so we could either set a class, or in this case, I'm going to set a data attribute, set the direction that we're going in. So I'm going to say that we're going to be doing document.document element, which is right there, which is our HTML element. And then we can set or do a data set, and that will be direction, and it's going to be equal to my direction. Nothing too complicated. But if we go and take a look now, let's go over to here. And you can see here's my HTML element. I'm expecting that to get that data set on there, but when I go over, it doesn't get it. Just really fast there, you can see the view transition coming in as I'm navigating around, so that's cool. That might be a setting I have in my dev tools or something set on, I'm not sure. But we can see while those view transitions are happening, I'm not getting my data set there. And the reason for that is I'm doing this on my page swap. And so this is the outgoing document. This is everything I'm doing now. If I'm setting my document.document element, it's on the one that we're dumping off. We're not doing it on the new one that's coming in, which is what we're seeing here. As soon as we click, we're getting the new document loading in. And there are times where you're going to want to set classes or other things on the outgoing document, and we'll see an example of that coming up soon. But when you're trying to manipulate the incoming document, you want to do this on a page reveal instead. And just doing this isn't enough. It's close, but we're actually going to get a console error now if we do this, I think. Let's try. Let's go home. There we go. We're getting an undefined here, and it's coming. It doesn't know what the from is. And it's because before on the page swap, our event.activation had this information in there. On the page reveal, the event's activation, well, that was coming from before. What's happening now is actually there's a navigation going on. So here, instead of event, we're going to put in navigation like this. So we're getting the navigation activation. So this is the information being fed into from where we were just coming from, or from what was causing this navigation to happen. So by switching the event.activation to our navigation.activation for our page reveal, it should, let's go to my about page. If we come and take a look, we can see direction is forward. And if I go to my home page, direction is backward. Now there is a problem here, is you probably don't want this to stick around here. It could potentially cause problems. Like as soon as that document is gone, it doesn't really matter because it's not part of that anymore. But it could be something where you run into some issues. So anyway, it's probably better to do some cleanup along the way, and it's very easy to do that. We're just going to take this event and turn it into an async event. Nice and easy. We just put our async right there. So we have an async function now. And then what we can do is we can actually await the end of that. So we can say await event.view transition finished. And by doing that, let's do a console log now. Console log done. And let's go take a look at our console. If I go over to my home page, and as soon as it's finished, we get our done popping up right there. So that means anything I put after here will be things that happen afterwards. So in this case, once it's done, all we want to do is delete our document. And I'm just going to copy this because it'll go a little bit faster. We want to delete the document element dataset.direction. And so now if we come and take a look on here, once again, we have the HTML elements there. I'm going to click on about. We do our view transition, the forward is there, and then when it's finished, we remove that from there. So a little bit of cleanup. That just, again, in this specific situation, it probably wouldn't cause any issues, but there's just the potential for it to be there. You might as well do it. It's one line, and you can do it. So I'll remove that, and there we go. We're all set up. So with that done, we have our data set being added. I'm going to jump over to my CSS, and I'm actually going to remove this right there. And I'm going to remove this, and maybe you didn't see any of this. Some of this I probably did when I was mucking around with Bramus, but if I take all of that off, where we now have an animation. Oh, and then I'm also, here we go, going to remove these two right here. Just so we don't have any animations on there right now. And there we go. We have the default one coming and clicking back in now, as you'd expect. And I'm going to stick with the 2 seconds now, and then we'll reduce that because, again, it's a bit long, but I think for demos it makes sense. And what I'm going to do is I've actually brought in some already all the way down here that we're going to take a look at all together. But it'd be a little bit faster. Basically, I have a slide out to the left, which is starting here and move to the left. Then I have a slide to the right, which moves to the right. Then I have a slide in right. So from off on the right side to moving in, slide out right, and then a slide in left. I don't know why my direction left, right, right, left, but whatever. We have the 4 of them happening right there to slide in and out respective of what we have on there. And then here I can say if my data direction is forward, my view transition of the old one, the one that's leaving, is going to do a slide out left, and the new one is going to do the slide in right. And then if we have a data direction of backward, we do the opposite. So we're doing a slide out right, a slide in left. So now, and I go to my about, we slide that way because we're sliding in that way. My hands are reversed here, but whatever. We're sliding that way. And if I go back to my home, it slides the other way. So it's going to match the direction of the way the pages are ordered up here, which is so cool. Yeah, I don't know. I find that really fun. I actually just realized I have shorter animations going here. So we're getting the snappier one than we had before anyway. So that's working. I think that's so cool. I'm so happy with that. It's not that complicated to do once you understand what's happening here. I probably could have even simplified exactly here, but I really wanted to break down each and every piece of how this was working to be able to do it. Now there is one problem with this, is that's working for these, but what if I go to this one? It's probably going to do backward, I think. Yeah, which is kind of weird. Like, why would it go backward there? And that means it's always going to be forward going this way. And that's because this page that we're going to here isn't in this list. And because it's not in there, if you do an index of something that's not in your list, it's -1. And if we're getting a -1, it means the target index is always smaller than the old index, which means we're always getting a backward. And that's kind of annoying. So there's a few different ways we could fix this. It's probably actually worth grabbing all of this and all the way up to here, I should say, and turning this into its own function, because it's going to make it, first of all, a bit more cleaner. So let's do a function of set animation direction. And then here we could do something like old page, comma, new page, and then paste everything we have. And then instead of URLs here, that would become page, just so we're using those that we're passing in, and the path, everything else here would stay the same. We're getting a direction, but we could do 2 things here. Instead of a const direction, what I would actually do here is we could just return, right? Return this, so return. So it's going to return as part of this function. When we use it up there, it's going to return either forward or backward. But what we could say is if the new page, no, sorry, not the new page. I want the target index. If the target index is equal to -1, yeah, if the target index is equal to -1, then we could just have it return forward like that. I'm just trying to think if that makes sense. I think it does. So if our page we're going to isn't in our list, so it's going to be a -1, then we have a forward. And if it's the other way around, then it's actually going to do the math and figure out what direction we're going in. And with that done, then here, where we were doing that before, we would just come in and say that our const direction that we had before is going to be equal to our set animation direction with our old URL, comma, new URL. And except this should be not URL, target URL. So we're consistent. I just realized I put new page here. I put target page here. So this should actually be new page. I should have been a bit more consistent with my naming. Whatever. Target page, doesn't matter. Let's see if this worked. So if we go to my home page, it worked. It went that way. So that's good. If we go to my another page, it's going that way. That's correct. Let's go back to my home page. It went the right way. And now this one should be a forwards. Perfect. And then if we go to another one, oh, we don't have an animation happening. From here, it's okay. Oh, it seems to be okay. That's okay. Okay, no, we're good. Okay, there must have been a little glitch going on there, but it seems to be, we're working correctly now. Perfect. So one thing I've noticed is that view transitions sticking around in there for a really long time. So I think what's happening is this is still kicking in, and I think that's actually part of what's causing some of the jumps, because I'm clicking and moving off to a new page. It's interrupting it because I'm clicking before those 2 seconds are up. So this should be a little bit snappier, and now I think we won't run into those weird issues that I was running into. So that's a nice little thing there, and that's kind of cool. If you notice, like if I'm here, when I go to this page, the navigation like drops down too, is a different thing because it's coming from the top of the page. I find that's kind of neat, and I like that a lot. Cool. So that's if we're doing this and we can control the direction. You might want to do something a little bit more complicated though, which is, and this was where you'd want your page swap and your page reveal. And here's an example of that. This is the demo that Bramus shared with me to show me how this could work. So here, if I click on Yuna, she comes in, and if I go back, she jumps back into place. If I go to Barry here, Barry is going to zoom up the name. It's doing the same animations as before, but what they didn't do is set everything. If I come and take a look on these in my inspect, and I come take a look at the image of Bramus, there's no view transition, any information set on that anywhere here. That information's only getting set when we click on it, and we don't see it. It's really snappy. It's really fast. But what he explained to me actually was if we set view transitions on everything here, that's a lot of information for the browser because it actually has to store all of that and have like snapshots of everything that it's keeping track of. And if you do that for tons of stuff, it could potentially have some performance implications. And so what we can do is, and the example here of this page, I'm going to link to this in the description, as well as the MDM, because the MDM actually uses the code for this demo in their example here. And let's actually, I'm on the page reveal here. I want to go back to the view transitions page swap. And so what they're doing is with the page swap, they're getting the information about the URLs the same way we were before. And it's saying if we're going to if we're currently on a profile page and the home page is the target URL, then it's finding document.query selector details main h1, and it's setting the name on that as a view transition name, and then it's setting an avatar to the image. And this is on page swap. So this is on the page that we're currently on. It's only setting those transition names as soon as the transition is starting. So as right before that document is getting rid of, we add this onto those elements. We wait for the transition to be finished, and then we can remove those same transition names from there. And then on the page reveal, so the new page that's coming in, they do the same thing, is profile page where we're coming from, and are we currently on the home page? So we've left the profile page, and then we're coming to here, and then doing the same thing. But what's interesting with this is the const profile, they're getting the profile name from the URL. Really clever. I love this a lot. I'm going to zoom in a bit more here. So we're getting the profile name, so the person's name from the URL, and getting that here as our profile. And they have a function here that's probably like the pop one I was doing from before. Getting rid of the .html or whatever might come from there, but they have a function to do that. And then they're doing a document.query selector with the profile, and then finding the span in there to set the name, and getting the image and setting the avatar that way. And so they're setting the view transition names only when the animations need to be triggered and happening. And this is where you'd need to use both your page reveal to be applying these on the new page that you're going to, as well as the page swap to be setting these on the outgoing page. So you set them all up, it's going to do the transition, and then you're cleaning everything up at the same time. Definitely gets a little bit more complicated when we start wanting to get into these fancier ones, but yeah, I thought it was really cool, and just like it helps step things up a lot. And like this type of thing, it's just so fun, and it's a little bit different if you're doing it this way versus when you're going back and forth between the home page and everything else there. And so with that, I just want to say a huge thank you to Bramus for helping me out so much with this. I do apologize that the end had to jump over just to me, because it was much more entertaining, I found, at least when Bramus was walking me through it. But again, it got really messy once we got into the JavaScript stuff of everything that was going on with it. So I figured re-recording this part would be a little bit cleaner. There'll be links to everything down below of examples of this demo and some other ones that he shared with me, and everything else. And if you have any questions about view transitions, you're probably best off to hit up Bramus and not me, since he's the expert on these. So I've included links to his socials down below as well. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. I really hope that you enjoyed this. This video has been a really long time coming, so I know a few people have been waiting for it, so I hope that it was worth the wait. And with that, I want to thank my enablers of awesome, Simon and Tim, as well as all my other patrons and channel members for their monthly support. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.